أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وآله آل الله واللعنة الدائمة على عداوتهم أعداء الله من يوم عداوتهم إلى يوم لقاء الله أما بعد قال أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام وأمر بالمعروف تكون من أهله وأنكر المنكر بيدك ولسانك وبين من فعله بجهودك وجاهد في الحق في الله حقا جهاده ولا تخازك في الله لومة لائم فخذل غمرات الحق حيث كان وتفقه في الدين وعود نفسك تصبر على المكروه ونعم الخلق نصبر في الحق والجي نفسك في أمور كلها إلى إلهك فإنك تلجأها إلى كهف حريز ومانع عزيز. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the merciful, tonight is the night of the last Friday of the holy month of Ramadan, which means tomorrow is the day of Yawm al-Quds. We are continuing with our discussion on the last testament of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. And in this testament, at one place, Amir al-Mu'mineen very explicitly counsels his son Hassan ibn Abi Talib and says, وَأَمْرَبِلْ مَعْرُوفَ تَقُونَ مِنْ أَهْلِهِ وَأَنْكَرَ الْمُنْكَ بِيَدِيكَ وَلِسَانِكَ. Do Amr bil Maruf so that you can be also counted among people who have done Amr bil Maruf before. You are counted amongst those. Amir al-Mu'mineen wants his son to be counted amongst those category of people who do Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar. He says, do Nahi anil Munkar with your action as well as speech and keep off to the best of your ability from he who commits it. He says, when you do Nahi anil Munkar, when you stop Munkarat from a society, do it to the best of your ability. Just don't do it for namesake purpose. And struggle for Allah as wajahidu fillahi haqqan jihadihi, whereby you deliver the worth of the struggle. And even if someone condemns you for the struggle, do not stop in the matters of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and jump into dangers for the sake of haqq wherever it be. Now, since this night coincides with the day of Yawm al-Quds, in the light of these words of Amir al-Mu'mineen itself, I'm going to talk about something related to Quds today. As we all know, Yawm al-Quds is the day of awakening for all the oppressed nations. Though Palestine and Baitul Muqaddas is an icon for this day, where we come out and talk about liberation and freedom of Baitul Muqaddas in Palestine from the Jewish illegal state which is there. But that is just real truth, is that it is a day of awakening for all the oppressed nations across the world. The day which gives a message is Yawm Allah, which gives a very clear, explicit message that you have to rise and stand up in the way of Allah if you are oppressed and not just bear oppression. Unfortunately, we as a Muslim Ummah over the last 70 years plus, we did not, and almost 75 years now it is coming to, we did not rise for Quds. And so today, it is not just Palestine which is oppressed. In fact, Palestine, we can say, is less oppressed as compared to other nations in the world like Yemen and more like Kashmir. Similar time frames, whatever changes used to happen in Palestine, similar things would happen in Kashmir itself. Today, Kashmir is under very high atrocity of the Indian government, and also the Indian Muslims are very highly oppressed today. Hence, under the light of Amir al-Mu'mineen's words in his Wasiyatnama, I would like to discuss two issues which are interlinked over here. One issue is an historic issue to understand certain causes on how nations become oppressed to this particular level. And that we will take specifically to Bani Israel, where they always put up a question that we were a chosen people of God and this land was gifted to us by God. So how can someone else come and occupy this land? Means they consider Palestinians as occupant of this land, and this land belongs to them. Let's try to look into that answer historically as well. And second is the reasons why nations like Indian Muslims, 200 million, are suffering today, why they are oppressed so much. We will look into these answers today. In Surah Isra, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the verse in Surah Isra starts with this itself, that Subhanallazi Isra bi abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-harama ila masjid al-aqsa alladhi barakana hawlahu linuriyahu min ayatina innahu huwas samiul basir. Glory be to Allah, who made His servant to go on the night from the sacred mosque to the remote mosque, which is Baitul Muqaddas, for which we have blessed the prison, so that we may show to him some of our signs. Surely He is the hearing, the seeing. And then Allah says, وَأَتَيْنَا مُوسَى الْكِتَابَ وَجَعَلْنَهُ هُدًى لِبَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ أَلْتَتَّخِذُوا مِن دُونِي وَقِيلًا. And we gave Musa the book and made it a guidance for the Bani Israel, and tell them to do acts, to hold it very tight, the book, the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and do not take a wakil, protector besides me. Then the third verse, and they were the offspring of Prophet Nuh, surely he was a grateful servant. And then the fourth verse comes and again says, and we had made known to the children of Israel in the book, most certainly you will make mischief in the land twice, and most certainly you will have insolently with great insolence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has predicted for Bani Israel that 2 times in this land you are going to make mischief. You are going to do fasad over here. وَقَزَيْنَا إِلَى بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ فِي الْكِتَابِ لِفَسِدُنَّ فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَّتَيْنِ وَتَعَلَنَّا Uluwan kabira. So when the promise for the first of the 2 came, we sent over you our servants of mighty prowess, so they went to and fro among the houses, and it was a promise to be accomplished. Now this is the verse of Surah Isra, where we want to focus a bit more upon that how this nation, who was blessed with the Holy Land, became so much degenerated and humiliated over here. Now, in this verse number 5 of Surah Isra, فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ أُولَهُمَا بَعْثَنَا عَلَيْكُمْ عِبَادًا لَنَا أُولِيَ الْبَعْثِ شَدِيدًا. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when the promise for the first of the 2 came, we sent over you our servants of mighty prowess, so that they went to and fro from the houses, and it was a promise to be accomplished. Now, we need to get into the history of Israelites, the Bani Israel, so that we become acquainted with all the causes and circumstances on account of which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removed this nation that professed to believe in the book of Allah, that is the Torah, from the leadership of mankind, and turned into a humiliated and condemned and a backward community. What happened to this nation? What's that history? Now, we will not go back from starting from Prophet Yaqub and Yusuf and talking about the generations of Bani Israel. No. We will start after Prophet Musa, because that is where this degeneration started. That is where the book was given, and then what did they do with that book, with those laws? Now, after the death of Prophet Musa, let me just make sure that there is no disturbance. Yeah, that's okay. It's a very interesting topic to understand, so just be attentive. After the death of Prophet Musa, Bani Israel entered Palestine, which at that time was inhabited by certain local tribes over there, which were the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, and the Philistines itself was a tribe. Now, they were communities, tribal communities. These communities, and Bani Israel also were 12 tribes. These communities had worse kind of idolatry, polytheism. They had got one supreme deity, a Buddha, an idol by the name of Il, as a father of God, and then which was represented by a bull image, And then from this one deity, there were various other small gods, a god for everything, a god for rain, a god for food, a god for land, a god for love, a god for recreation, a god of death, a god of disease. For both good and evil, there were gods. This means they had divided all the worldly affairs among large number of deities, like the Hindus today, which we see. They have a god of wealth, Lakshmi, the god of knowledge, and the god of love, and all those kind of things they have. So many, more than 300 gods, I know thousands of gods which they have. Now, with these many kind of innumerable deities, the Bani Israel were not safe from moral corruption and degeneration, and the modern excavations which took place, I'm sorry, not Bani Israel, the communities which were present in Palestine, in that region. Bani Israel went into that land. Okay. Now these communities, because of mushrik, shirk, no tawheed, no monotheism, no morality present, they were completely corrupt tribes over here, full of corruption. Like today you can see in the Indian Hindu culture. They worship all these deities, but there is no morality, there are no ethical things. There is alcohol, there is zina, there is adultery, there is gambling, there is lust, there is corruption, there is cheating, because there is no code of conduct over there. Now, just to list down certain immoralities within these communities which were present, like child sacrifice was a very common thing. They would sacrifice their children. Places of worships which they had, the temples where they used to worship these idols, were turned into brothels, where women were kept as religious prostitutes and illicit relationships were part of worship. Now, this was the kind of moral corruption which was present in these communities, in these community tribes, where now Bani Israel are going to end up over there. Now, the Bani Israel were told in Torah that they should invade this land, destroy these communities, take over the land of Palestine from these communities, and they should avoid mixing up with these people and just ward off their moral and ideological weaknesses. So the mission which was given to the Bani Israel was to get inside this land. Get inside this land and purify the land from the moral corruption which was present because of these communities and tribes over there. And Israelis, the Bani Israel, entered Palestine. They set this guidance, but what they did, when they entered Palestine, they did not pay heed to this guidance, and instead of establishing a kingdom of their own, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted over there, they fell prey to their own Bani Israel tribal narrow-mindedness. Tribal narrow-mindedness means they were themselves 12 tribes, they had prejudice. So when they entered the land, each tribe found a good area, a good region, and they just settled over there and established their own rule over there. So instead of establishing a common unified state of Israelites, they went, each tribe took their own and established their own kingdom over there. Now this disunity amongst them did not leave any Bani Israel tribe strong enough to eradicate the mushrik and the kuffar from those lands completely. Because they were divided. They were into 12 tribes. They couldn't fight those people over there. Hence, they allowed them to live side by side with them in the same land. In fact, there were many small cities which remained fully dominated by mushriks over there, which were Bani Israel were not able to subjugate. Bani Israel attacked them, they took small pockets, and they allowed them to live together because they were divided themselves. Now we can find in Zubur, the Psalms of Prophet Dawood, the criticism for Bani Israel for this is present. I don't have time to go into that. Now, because of this Bani Israel mixing with these idolatrous community present in the Palestine region, what happened? Two things happened, the consequences. One, Bani Israel themselves became idolatrous and gradually began to adopt the moral evils also. And same thing if you see in India happened. 70 years before, when freedom for India came, there was a vision of Pakistan to be established. But many Indian Muslims did not pay heed to the warning which was there in this message. that if you live with mushrikeen over there, you will also become idolatrous. And what happened? They did not become Hindus, but they adopted the same culture and imported all those idolatrous rituals within Islam. Today, see all the culture. From the outward appearance, many of the Muslims, specifically within Shias, you cannot figure out. They put all those bands in their hand and all sort of things which they do, just like the idol worshippers do. They do the same things with all these taziyas and all this kind of thing, garlands and worshipping and all these rituals. Same, exactly same. This was the warning which was given to the Bani Israel, that if you mix up with the idolatrous people, with the mushrikeen, you will adopt their culture. And this is what happened in India also, and this is what happened with Bani Israel over there. Second thing which happened over here was the communities whose cities the Bani Israel could not conquer because of the division amongst themselves, the Philistines over there. So these land remain untouched. And these communities who were present, they instead united and drove the Bani Israel out from the major part of Palestine by continuously attacking the Bani Israel separate, so much that they deprived the Bani Israel of the holy Ark of Nuh, which was present with Bani Israel, and the Tabut Sakina, which was present with Bani Israel. Now Bani Israel then realized that they did a big mistake, that they should be united the way it was told to them in Torah. So they said they need to establish a united kingdom under one ruler. Then they started to approach the prophet over there. That was Prophet Shamil, Prophet Samuel. This prophet told them, see, you are not going to be united. You are always troublemakers. So no, we want to fight now. Appoint for us a leader under whose one leadership we will fight and establish a kingdom. And then Prophet Shamil appointed Talut as their leader. And this is a famous incident in Surah Baqarah, ayah number 246, I believe, 242 or 246, where this incident is narrated. Now Talut, with the help of Dawood, took over these communities of Palestine, which was under Jalut's leadership, a powerful tyrant leader. They took them, and a united kingdom was established under the kingship, under the rulership of Talut. And after Talut, it was Dawood who became his successor, and after Dawood, it was Prophet Sulaiman. These three rulers completed the mission which was left incompleted by the Bani Israel after Prophet Musa. Now, we can say over here that with Prophet Sulaiman, a sort of a global Islamic, not Islamic, I would say, a global divine government was established by Prophet Sulaiman, where the entire region came under control and one rule and rule of God, and everything got established. It's fine. Now, after Prophet Sulaiman's death, what happened? Again, Bani Israel adopted the way of worldly life and fought among themselves. Biggest issue with Bani Israel was tafarqa, tribalism, communalism. They did not want it to get united. The prophets like Dawood, Talut, and after struggling and after being beaten up, they decided once, fought, and Allah gave them the kingdom. Allah gave them a big kingdom of Sulaiman. But again, dissent and discord started amongst them. To this extent, that Bani Israel decided to divide the kingdom of Sulaiman after Prophet Sulaiman's death into two parts. One was the kingdom of Israel in northern Palestine and Jordan region with the capital as Samaria, and other was the southern Palestine with the capital as Baitul Muqaddas, as Jerusalem. Now, these kingdoms were under violent dissent and discord and crisis from the very beginning. Though they divided into two, but again inside they were under dissent and tafarqa and discord. The rulers and the people, because they were previously associated and affiliated with the mushrikeen, they were affected by the ideological and the moral weaknesses of the neighboring communities. They would do trading, they would go here and there. So in the neighborhood, there were communities in Syria and other places which were mushrik, kuffar. They were getting affected by them. And even one of the rulers of Bani Israel who came later on got married to a mushrik princess. And after this, idolatry and other evils spread unchecked and were spreading under official patronage. In this situation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was sending his prophets. Prophet Elias, Prophet Elisha, and many other prophets were coming and trying to control them, but Israelis did not pay any attention to them. And in fact, they were killing the prophets. In fact, they were expelling the prophets. At last, the divine wrath came on the kingdom of Israel in the form. How did this divine wrath came? Which is mentioned in this verse of Surah Isra, verse number 5. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدَهُ أَوْلَهُمَا بَعَثْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ عِبَادًا لَنَا أُولِي الْبَعْثِ الشَّدِيدِ. So when the promise for the first of the two wraths came, we sent over you our servants of mighty prowess. The Syrians from the neighborhood who were mighty, they came and attacked these nations over here. So, coming back to our discussion. Now, when the divine wrath came in the form of continuous attacks from the neighboring Syrian region on these two kingdoms of Bani Israel, the north and the south Palestine. Now, during this period also, there were prophets present. Prophet Amos, Prophet Hosea, all these prophets were warning the Bani Israelis that you cannot be divided amongst yourself. You will not be able to fight your enemies. Today, all this situation, what is happening in India, I'll come to that later on, but it's because division. But they did not pay any heed to any warning and transgressed all limits. And these prophets were banned and exiled. Eventually, the Assyrian took over northern Palestine and ended the Bani Israeli kingdom. Thousands of Bani Israel were killed, driven out of their homeland and scattered across the region, and they were replaced by other parts of the empire. When the remaining Israelis who remained back, they remained back under Taqiyya, and they intermixed with the settlers, and they also gradually lost their national and cultural identity. The northern Palestine region suffered the most in terms of immorality and losing religiousness. The southern Palestine region was also losing the morality after the death of Suleiman, but at a slow pace, hence it existed for a little longer period. Eventually, they also came under various attacks, and its capital Jerusalem was besieged, but the other parts of the region could not be wholly destroyed by the Assyrians. Again, some prophets did reformatory efforts, but people did not give up idol worship and other moral evils. Then, the king of Babylon attacked and captured whole of South Palestine, including Jerusalem. Even then, Bani Israel did not change their ways and did not pay attention to the warnings of the prophet. Now, as this attack from Babylon was going on, the Israelis planned to revolt but were brutally crushed, and the king of Babylon razed Jerusalem and Solomon's temple to the ground and did not leave a wall standing in place. So this was the first destruction which happened on the Baitul Muqaddas. He drove the Israelis out of the land and subjected them to all kinds of humiliation for those who remained behind by the neighboring communities. This was the first calamity that came as a warning to them, which is mentioned in the Quran, and the first chastisement they suffered as a result thereof. Why did they suffer this? They got into power, they established a nation. Prophet Sulaiman established a complete divine government, but then it was a tafarqa within them, the communalism, the tribalism, by which they got divided, they became weak, and they adopted other cultures. Today, as communities, we are divided into small communities, small jamaats, and then these jamaats on one hand become weak, at the other hand they are influenced by the liberal culture where you are living. Exactly what happened, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala crushed them completely through the hands of other nation. This is a message for the Indian Muslims in a way which Quran is giving over here. Then what happens? The second wrath. ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَا لَكُمُ الْكَرَّةَ عَلَيْهِمْ وَأَمْدَدْنَكُمْ بِأَمْوَالٍ وَبَنِينَ وَأَجَلْنَكُمْ أَكْثَرَ نَفِيرٍ. Then we gave, Allah says, then again we gave you an opportunity to prevail and helped you with wealth and children and increase your numbers. Now, what happens? After the people of South Palestine, Southern Palestine got released from the captivity of Babylon, there were still some people who practiced the truth and invited others also to follow it. They invited Bani Israel to repent and follow the truth. With these efforts, of few Salihin who were trying to do reformation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once again became merciful and Allah's mercy came on them. How did that mercy come? The Persian king Cyrus attacked and took over Babylon. When Babylon took under Persian king, they took over all the territories which were under Babylon, which means Palestine as well. And the Persian king Cyrus issued a decree to allow all the Israelis who were expelled and ran away to return back to their homeland. And Israelis returned back immediately in big numbers. Cyrus also allowed to rebuild the Solomon temple, though there was resistance coming from neighboring communities, but again he allowed and it was rebuilt. Then a very important prophet came in this region, and that was Prophet Uzair. Prophet Uzair came to this region of South Palestine, Jerusalem. Since there was, and this was a relaxation period. The Persian king Cyrus was not hard on the religiousness of Jews. He was giving them an opportunity to practice their faith and religion. Now this was the opportunity window where there was a relaxation degree given by the Persian king, and Prophet Uzair used his hikmah and took the advantage of this opportunity to revive the religion of Musa. Today you see many lands like India again, they had an opportunity when this kind of atrocities and oppression was not there, but they did not do anything. Today you in Tanzania, you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity still today, because you are not under that form of atrocity and oppression. You have an opportunity window in which you can revive the religion, you can revive the faith, you can spread the faith, you can invite the people towards the right path. Prophet Uzair took advantage of this opportunity to revive the religion of Musa. He gathered all the righteous people and good people. He compiled the Torah. He spread the Torah, the divine book. He made arrangement for creating madrasas, religious education, education of Israelis. He enforced the law, whatever was practicable at a community level. And he started to purge the moral and ideological weakness which the Bani Israel had adopted by intermixing with the other communities. He compelled the Jews to even divorce mushrik wives whom they have married before. He took an ahad, a misak, a covenant from Bani Israel to worship only God and follow His law. With the support of the Persian king, a wall was made around Jerusalem, the wall which you see today also. And it took 150 years that the holy city was fully restored and became a center of Jewish religion and culture. It was Prophet Uzair's effort that who established this religious setup over there. Now, this was going fine and well for Jewish culture to spread. But then, the Persian Empire was attacked by Alexandra. When Alexandra conquered the Persian Empire, it was the Greeks. And the Greeks made Syria as their capital with Palestine under it. Now, Greek conquerors were idolatrous people and morally corrupt, very corrupt. Hence, they were not comfortable with the religious Jewish religion and culture, which were having a lot of things which were forbidden, like alcohol is forbidden, wine is forbidden, adultery is forbidden. The Jewish were very liberal people. They started to propagate the Greek way of culture and used political dominance and economic pressure. How? They tried to win a large section of Israelis, specifically the Israeli ulama, and to become their helpers. They caused a division within the Jewish nation. due to which one part of the Jews adopted the Greek way of life and culture and others stuck to their own. The Greeks used all their power and authority to eradicate the Jewish culture and religion. They got idols in the holy temple and forced Jews to prostrate. They proposed death penalty for having Torah in the house or anyone who observes Sabbath. Against this, because of the efforts of Prophet Uzair, who has created such an awareness and marifat and passion among certain righteous people, the Jews started a powerful resistance movement, which is historically a very famous movement known as the Revolt of Maccabees. The Revolt of Maccabees in history is a very famous revolution of the Jews. The Jews had this passion which was created from the days of Uzair. They revolted strongly and got freedom and established a free religious state, and this prospered to all territories across the south and north of Palestine. That is what the verse says, that Allah gave you wealth, Allah gave you respect, and Allah numbered you and spread you again. But then another downfall starts. Once the Jews established themselves, they defeated the Greeks over there with this revolution. The moral and religious passion and fervor started to came down or went towards worldly inclination, love of world. Because as you're getting power, people are getting appointed as governors and state leaders and all these things. Just like in Iran after the Islamic Revolution, the downfall which took place and the consequences can be seen today is because of this reason, the love of world, hubb-e dunya, and due to which split took place amongst the Jews. And as a result of the split, one group invited a Roman general, the Roman general, very famous Roman general Pompey, came to Palestine. He came with force and put an end to political freedom of Jews. Now, Jews were not able to govern any state. Just remain inside your house, secularism, worship your Lord and God inside your homes. Now, Romans were not ruling directly. They were ruling through local agencies instead of direct control. Means they would appoint a Jewish person only as a leader of the state. The local government in Palestine was set up under the famous ruler Herod, a very famous name. Even you find in the Zionism also this name coming up. A clever Jew. He was a very clever Jew. Herod, what he did, because he was a Jew, he knew the psychology of the Jewish people. He knew their weaknesses. The weaknesses of the Jews were their religious leaders, the ulama. Herod patronized and pampered the religious scholars, the rabbis, so that they kept the Jewish community under control. And at the same time, he was promoting the Roman culture. So when the king is patronizing the ulama, whose responsibility is to do Amrabil Maruf and Nahi Anil Munkar, when a liberal culture is also being spread at the same time, instead of doing Amrabil Maruf and Nahi Anil Munkar, they are issuing fatwas of legitimacy. Just like today, your sheikhs from Birmingham, issuing fatwa on liberalism, on homosexuality and all these things. Why? Because they are patronized by someone sitting on top. Someone sitting on top who is asking them to tell your community to accommodate the liberal thoughts inside us, and started to promote the Roman culture. Herod did this so that he can also become in the good books of Caesar. No, during his reign of Herod, the Jews degenerated and fell to the lowest level of moral and religious life. The religion became entirely corrupted. Morality was completely gone. Now Herod died. After Herod died, his 3 sons took over 3 parts of the kingdom. But Caesar did not want them to completely control. So he appointed a Roman governor and also took a form of a direct control. This was the time when Prophet Isa appeared to reform the Israelis, who faced a very strong opposition from the Jews. Prophet Isa's major opponent was not the Hukumat, it was the Jewish religious leaders, the ulama over there. And they got a death sentence from the Roman governor for Prophet Isa. Herod's second son who was governing the southern part, the northern part of Palestine, the Jordan region, he killed Prophet Yahya on the instructions of an adulterous woman. The Romans and the sons of Herod had made preaching very difficult. Prophet Isa had a very tough struggle. After Prophet Isa went away, he was sent for crucifixion with a death sentence. Then a revolt started. The blood of Isa started a revolt between the Jews and the Romans, which became a big revolt, and the Romans crushed the Jews. They took full control of Jerusalem, and nearly 133,000 Jews were killed, and 70,000 made slaves, and thousands sent to Egypt and other cities. The Masjid al-Aqsa was razed down to ground, and after this, Jewish existence disappeared from Palestine for 2,000 years till 1947. This was the calamity which Jews suffered on account of their degeneration for the second time. So you can see there is an instruction to them to establish a divine government. They get morally corrupt by intermixing with corrupt communities. They do not follow that path, that mission which was given to them. They end up into all these difficulties, degeneration, humiliation, and then Allah gives them one opportunity to establish a united kingdom under Prophet Dawood, Sulaiman. Again they become morally corrupted. Again they get into problem. Twice these things have happened. Main reason was what? One, intermixing with mushrikeen. Two, not realizing. Two, tafarqa, discord, dissent amongst themselves. Three, not realizing that you cannot be morally successful unless you establish a religious government, your own united government. Fourth, your ulama, the religious leaders. They are misused. They come under control of the state. And when they come under the control of the state, then it is very easy for the state to spread corruption. Now this was the history which I presented about the Israelis. Now when the Israelis says that God has chosen them, they are the chosen people of the God. Yes, they were chosen people at that time. Allah gave them a hukumat, but what did they do after that? Quran very explicitly says, twice you did this. Once you did mischief, we again gave you an opportunity. We again gave you an opportunity to revive. They revived again, and again when their morality degenerated, we sent a prophet. Allah was continuously sending guidance. When guidance is continuously coming, you lose your land, then that land is no more yours. It's no more yours. The successors who come, which is Islam, it becomes their land. Those who follow the divine book, the land is theirs. Those who leave the divine book behind their back and follow moral and corrupt ways, the land doesn't belong to them. Again in 1947, the Jews are moved back to the region and they start to claim that this is our land. What happened to them before? By those mushrik communities, they are doing the same atrocities now and the Palestinian Muslims. And the Palestinian Muslims should learn from this history that by being united, you can counter them, you can fight them. Same message is for everyone. Why Amir al-Mu'mineen says, وَأَمْرَبِلْ مَعْرُوفَ تَكُونُ مِنْ أَهْلِهِ. Do Amr bil Maruf, invite people towards the right path. وَأَنْكِرِ الْمُنْكَرْ بِيَدِيكَ وَلِسَانِكَ. And do nahi anil munkar. Stop evil by your tongue or by your action to the best of your ability. Best of your ability. And struggle in the way of Allah. Do jihad in the way of Allah, the way it deserves to be done. Leap into dangers for the sake of right wherever it be. If you have a right on something, jump into dangers. You will have to bear those dangers over here. This Yawm al-Quds, this year which it is coming, carries a deep message for everyone. On one side is a pandemic, which itself is an oppression, whereby a virus has been created. It has been spread, it is being sustained, its multiple variants are coming out, it's patented, a lot of documented evidences are available that this virus was created. And it is being spread with different variants for XYZ, many objectives, and one of the objectives is genocide. Today what is happening in India, people are dying because of no oxygen available. And today I have seen, just yesterday I have seen in the news, in Indian news, that they are declaring India, not they, I mean to say, the Allahabad, the UP court, the Allahabad High Court has issued a statement that lack of deaths happening due to lack of oxygen is a genocide. And this is exactly what Modi wants to do. They want to depopulate the country. They want to depopulate the world, 1.2 billion people. No, when COVID started last year, you knew oxygen is the key medicine for COVID-19 patients. You should have set factories, plants for generating oxygen. Government could have done this easily in India. They have funds, they have everything. You are bringing billions of dollars of Google and Amazon to Ambani's pocket, but you are not setting up oxygen plants across the country to supply oxygen. People are dying because of lack of oxygen. 350,000 cases almost per day. The number of deaths are soaring sky high because of lack of oxygen. You could save a majority of the people if oxygen is present. This is a genocide which is being done. And why this is happening? Because those who are righteous people do not do Amrabil Maroof and Nahi Anil Munkar. They do not stop the evils. They do not stop the corruption. And I'll talk about in detail, maybe inshallah tomorrow, about complete analysis on what is happening in India and where it is going to head towards. Unfortunately today, certain very sad things are happening in the region. Iran is once again about to sign the JCPOA deal with US. Again, another mistake which they are doing. The leader has told them not to do this, but still they are hell-bent to do this. And almost the sanctions would be removed anytime now. They will again get funds coming in, money coming in, and Iranians will again start to jump out for holidays and I don't know what all they will do. They are very worldly people. Iranians, when they see wealth, they leave aside everything. They will go after the worldly pomp again. And again more moral corruption will start. Read history. The history of Bani Israel tells this. You can see this last year, though it was a lockdown, more worse lockdown than this time, still there was a lot of noise made about Yom al-Quds and Palestine on the internet. But this year, nothing, hardly anything. Even from Iran you don't see anything coming up. Why? Because now you are signing of deals. Israel, I have to talk about Iran also in more details what's happening. With the recent attack on the Israel missile factory, Iran has given a message that if you start to attack our nuclear bases, we can also attack you. Let's sit across the table and settle it down. With Saudi, settlement is going on. Israel is becoming a bit nervous. US is stepping inside with Iran to come with a deal. Eventually it looks like maybe Iran might do an under the table compromise with Israel itself at a diplomatic level, not at a revolutionary level. It can happen at diplomacy. Rouhani can do this, or someone like Rouhani can come and do this. And this deal which is being made right before the elections itself is a signal that the next government which is going to come might again be the reformatory government, again be the likes of the Rouhanis. They want this kind of government to be present, not any revolutionary or inqilabi government to be present over there. Hence, we as the Ummah should raise our voice for the oppressed nation of Palestine definitely, but for the Kashmiris who are suffering a lot. There is no voice being raised for Kashmir across the world. Everyone is silent on Kashmir. Iran is totally silent on Kashmir because Iran has to do business with India. In fact, the representatives of the office of the leader are sending this message across to Indian ulama in Kashmir that be soft. Do not go against the state. Act with diplomacy. No uprising, no qiyam, no rebellion, nothing. Do not leave the path of revolution. Go on the path of diplomacy. Under this situation, 75 years of Kashmiri struggle, where does it go? Where does it go? The Indian Muslims are suffering, Kashmiris are suffering, and the entire nation is now suffering because of COVID-19. we need to really assess all these things very precisely. Very, very precisely we need to assess all these things as to where we stand, what is happening in the world, and what would be or what should be our Qibla in this situation. We always said, the revolutionary always thought Iran is our Qibla. No, I don't think so. Iran is any more our Qibla for revolution. In Iran, it is only the leader. To be very frank, if you ask me as a personal opinion, I won't be reluctant to say that I don't see anyone as a real revolutionary person on the path of Imam Khomeini in Iran other than the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. There is no one. At a high level, I am talking about an elite level, not at a lower level of Basijis and all. No, not at that level. At an elite level, at a bureaucratic level, you won't see anyone who is having the revolutionary spirit apart from the leader. He's isolated, he's alone now, completely. Ayatollah Misbah Yazdi, may Allah bless him, has passed away. Ayatollah Jannati is completely in his last stages. All these stalwarts are not there, few. And instead, most corrupt people are sitting over there. Same thing which was happening with Imam Hassan alayhi salam is happening over here in Iran right now. And a sulh is about to take place with US and might be with Israel also, with Saudi also, with bin Salman also. Who knows what all happens in the coming near future. We who carry the love and the passion of Islam, who know the right path, alhamdulillah, who know what is Islam and Naam, we need to abide by the principles, and these principles are established by the Quran, and Amir al-Mu'mineen is mentioning in his wasiyah that leap into dangers for the sake of haqq